look a little hazy this morning. All right.
Morning, everyone. Well, this week we're happy to have Sue Trumpfeller back with us. She has her last interview on water. She did primary water, piracy water, and groundwater. And if you missed it, it's back several interviews, but it really has so much information that is needed that's not out there in the public about primary water and how we have that, and there doesn't need to be any lack of water for people. So Sue, let's see it, her bio is an author, coach, teacher, dowser for over 40 years, a national public speaker about color, dowsing, subtle energy, labyrinths, and radionics. And she's designer of the Chi energy cards and the author of Discover Color, 99 Ways, and 99 More Ways to Use the Pendulum, and Discover the Pendulum. She was the former trustee with American Society of Dowsers. She was the American Society of Dowsers Dowser of the Year, 2003, and president of the Orange County, California Dowsers for 15 years, till they all just disbanded like they are nationwide. Well, some of them are still together. And all that information will be underneath the interview and how you can contact her. So good morning, Sue.
Good morning, Carol.
Here we are back, and today's talk is going to be on labyrinths, one of my favorites. And it's just like, since we were in dowsing for so many years and we had all these incredible people and speakers, we've just known about the labyrinths and the brain studies, you know, what they were doing with ADD, putting labyrinths into private schools. And one dowser did her doctorate at Harvard on it. So it's just like an amazing source of information that's like basically free if you have labyrinths around in your yard, or you can create them, and or in parks. And so Sue's going to go on. Sue's created many labyrinths, different styles. I mean, huge ones. I was at one where, you know, we're using a backhoe. It was just huge at the Asin Park. So Sue, let's hear about these labyrinths.
Well, as I was exploring my literature, I came across some other images of labyrinths, and I want to share, because labyrinths go back eons.
Is there an origin of the name? I never even thought of that.
You know what? I don't know.
Oh, that'll be a research.
Yeah, but was interesting to find, you know, they could show up in rock art, and they date them back to, you know, like 11,000 BC. So
wow.
I guess you'd say they've been around a while.
Yeah.
This is a coin from Crete. Come on. Come on. Show up. There it is.
So you just needed the command.
Yes.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That's a coin from, I think it was found in Crete.
Wow.
400 AD. So these labyrinths that we see today in churches and parks and hospitals do have a long history. My first exposure to labyrinths was 1988 at the Dowsers conference in Santa Cruz. Nicholas and Feather Anderson, Nicholas Fink, and had laid out one on the grounds on the campus at the Dowsers conference. Now, for me, the labyrinth had always been a picture in a book. I'd never seen a full-fledged labyrinth, you know, laid out on the ground. It was very exciting. And then that night they put candles all around and we did a walk of the labyrinth at night.
Yeah.
But some people, you know, some of the mazes or labyrinths are, you think about getting lost
Mm-hmm.
in them. And the one in Virginia, there's one in Virginia, it's a hedge maze, which is different than what we're talking about. And just so you know, if you're ever in a maze, you just put your hand, right or left hand, on the wall, and you'll cover the whole thing, and you'll not get lost, and you'll find your way out. And I thought that was very interesting.
That's so interesting in the myth of was that Ariadne or like
Yeah, and yes.
Oh, so you just put your hand out and interesting.
And just scan the walls and it'll take you into dead ends, you know, but a maze is often dead end pathways, whereas a labyrinth is a single pathway to the center.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're different, and they're for different reasons. The classical labyrinth, which is this, this is, well,
Maybe it needs the command again.
there it is. That's a classical labyrinth. It's 7 right turns and 7 left turns.
I don't see anything.
You don't see the labyrinth. I see the labyrinth. Okay. What do I have to do? Excuse me, I'm still learning. There we go. Does that do it?
Yeah, that does it.
Okay. I don't have
You
all the
said
buttons.
this was the classical one, right?
This is called the classical labyrinth, the Cretan labyrinth, and this is 7 turns. 7 turns in, 7 turns out. And that's why it's so wonderful for balancing your body, is because you're shifting your body as you walk it. I used to build them at the beach, and that's what these look like. Let's see. I did lots of workshops at the beach.
It's a perfect place to do it. Yeah.
So that's what those labyrinths look like. The seagulls, after we left, would come and sit on the edges.
Ah, wow.
And of course, it was always done at low tide. But one time when I was building the labyrinth, a couple came, and the man was sitting in the car because he was having trouble walking. So we dedicated the labyrinth to Joseph. And when we finished the labyrinth, we brought him in, and he walked it twice. And then the third time he wanted the rest of the class to join him.
Wow.
He was shuffling his feet. He could not pick his feet up when he got to the labyrinth. I mean, he was in pain, shall we say. Having walked it twice and then into the third time, he was picking up his feet.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the most dramatic shift in energy, and I'll call it a healing, as Joseph walked the labyrinth. And it was the third time around when he got the pain went away. He could move his legs. That was quite an amazing experience.
Well, I remember you like at the Dowsers during the years, different ones, having people draw them on their hand. Didn't you do that?
Yes. Well, I would, because I've done so many labyrinths, I can just draw them on my hand, you know, this way. Or you can draw it in, draw it on your hand. And here's how you draw it. And this one you might want to take a copy of for the people.
Yeah, people can just take a screenshot of this.
Take a screenshot of it because you can make it. That's the one that where you can draw your own labyrinth. So after my classes that we built them at the beach, I then had them gather rocks from the beach. And we would then draw labyrinths on the rocks. And it's fun visiting various clients or people's houses after they've been to one of my classes. And there's always a labyrinth on a rock. You've got yours.
I had totally forgot about this. I have this beautiful one I did
right.
Probably 15 years ago at one of those events. I love this.
Yeah, they've become, well, I've got one on my coffee table and one in my garden.
Yeah.
That I made.
And so people always look at it like some ancient artifact.
Right. So this is one to do a, what is it? The photo, save it.
It's so, it's so interesting, the architecture, how it's so geometric, and then you just, so linear, and then you bring in all the curves.
Right. Right. And so once you've drawn this on a piece of paper, you can then finger walk it. If you don't have one in your neighborhood or in the area, or you don't want to build one at the beach, you can take this tracing and then run your fingers on it. And I have a keychain of a labyrinth, so I will take a pen or a pencil and trace it. Trace that pattern. But it's important. It's the balancing.
Yeah, that you have, like how you're showing it, because I've experienced, you've experienced people who don't really understand that, and they just kind of make these designs and walk them, but there's more behind it, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Really balancing.
Before I build a labyrinth, any place, on the ground, any place, I douse. Well, I always ask permission at the beach to build it. If I'm building it at other facilities, I always ask permission to do it.
Right.
Then I will find the center and then find the direction of the opening. And that's critical in its alignment at that time. Now I've built, I don't know, maybe 12 different labyrinths, 12 labyrinths at the beach at different times of the year. And it's never the same for the entrance.
Wow.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's identical every time. But what I have found when people, and they draw their labyrinth out on a piece of canvas and lay it on the gym floor, and they lay it down on the floor as it's convenient for the traffic.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Wow.
It needs to be in alignment with the land on which the gym is. So there's been a couple of times when people have laid their cloth labyrinths on the gym floor at a conference. And once I partially walked in and went, I got to get out of here.
Wow.
It was so out of whack for me. And afterwards, I was talking to several people, and I said, did you walk it, or did you, how was it for you? And they said, I couldn't even get into it, Sue. It was so out of whack. So,
well, you know what? I had never thought of this, but it's just like flying stars in feng shui. when you're doing a house, you need to find its exact facing direction. So it's
Right.
so it's in like with the lay of the land, and it's the year it's built. So it's exactly the same dynamics. I had never thought of that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so finding the center
Mm-hmm.
and then finding the entrance,
Mm-hmm.
and then that lays you out to where your crossbows are, you know, the lines of it. And when you're building a permanent one, you want to measure the pathways so they're equidistant and, you know, it's more balanced. But what I did at the beach, which I loved, was that each person participated in the drawing of the labyrinth. So some of the pathways would be skinny and some of the pathways were really wide. And but what was very interesting on those I'll call them free form at the beach was you could feel the energy come against your body, and then it opened up again. And so that was really an interesting experience, because when you have a labyrinth like this, and let me show you some of the ones that I've done at the beach. I mean, done in permanent.
I mean, I'm always so amazed at the permanent ones I've been at that are built, how uniform how they come out just so perfectly, like by just following the plans for them. Yeah. I mean, and they're huge.
Yeah. Now this is up in Snowflake, or no, Sholo in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I went there and did a labyrinth workshop, and we built that labyrinth.
Wow.
It was they're on acreage, so we walked the land to find out where the center of the labyrinth was to be, and the couple that owned the land didn't think this was where it was supposed to be. They thought, as you look through the trees there, they thought it was over in the next plot of land. And but no, this is where it had to be, and it's fabulous, and hundreds of people have walked it.
Now this isn't a Seventh Circuit one, right? Like
this is the Seventh Circuit.
Oh, this is Seventh Circuit.
This is Seventh Circuit. Now, let me go to another one that I built. Well, this is the one you saw, Carol. This is the one is at the Ascene Center in Valley Vista, or Vista, in California.
Mm-hmm.
Oop, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look how uniform that is. I mean, this is like Sue walking out into just vacant land, finding the direct center, finding the direction, laying that, and then look at this. I mean, there was a backhoe. These are big stones. It's amazing, and so uniform. Yeah. Right.
And that's so when you're on a permanent labyrinth like that, you want your pathways to be of the same distance. And so everything was measured from the center. You know, we built the center circle, knowing there'd be a lot of ceremony done at this one. And then
I remember going back to it, and so many people had left little treasures all along on the stones. Yeah.
Yep, they are. My favorite place is to sit on the bench at the far side of the labyrinth and watch people walk it. It's really fun to watch people walk a labyrinth. I mean, I like walking them, but to observe a group of people walking the labyrinth. I
How
was
they
involved.
meet, because they're going back and forth, like
Yes.
it's interesting.
Yeah. And, some people are conflicted when they meet somebody going out, coming in.
Mhm.
And you just turn to the side and pass. And it's sometimes you hug, sometimes you do other things.
Mhm.
You know, twirl around, whatever. Yeah. So, but the important thing on the land is, and Carol and I've talked about this many times, if it's not laid out in alignment with the land,
Mhm.
it, as you know from your feng shui, Carol, it throws you bonkers.
Yeah. I mean, in the old days, as we're talking about all of this being so old, like in China and stuff, they knew that, and they knew there were terrestrial tides that were always changing, and you built with it. But now we build sideways, backwards, I mean, wherever there's space.
Right. And I was at a conference once, and the couple there were going to be building a labyrinth the next day. Well, their experience of the labyrinth was they had been in one a couple of days before. They didn't know anything about laying it out or any of that. And I went, I couldn't step, I had to step in and help with the laying it out, because and the funny thing is they put bird seed down as their marker instead of chalk. Well, they did it in the evening, and then people were to walk it the next day, but the birds all had a feast that night.
Oh, that's so funny.
It was so
right now, when you told me that, I remember that one in Vermont where it was all with bulbs. And so like in the spring, it would be all the daffodils and stuff, it came out like with different flowers during the spring and summer. It was beautiful.
Yeah, Alex did a lot of those classical labyrinths with daffodils. His property up in Northern California, he would have the daffodil festival, because after he did the labyrinths, then they planted the daffodils in the labyrinth, and it was beautiful. I never got up for it, but
yeah,
sadly we lost Alex this year.
The one in Vermont, she had put others. So when the daffodils died, so it would be like all the way till fall. It was really pretty. And then every year that would happen. Yeah.
Well, I got a permission at a Montessori school and laid out a labyrinth at the Montessori school. And somebody donated, a nursery donated plants, or the kids brought plants.
Oh, neat.
And so the labyrinth was all planted in herbs. Yeah, they had a great time with that one.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yes, the landscapers didn't like it, the people that did the.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the kids had a great time walking the labyrinth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget some of the things that I've done over the years with that, but yeah, that was fun to watch them. The kids brought all these different plants to plant, and so then the Dowsers had met over the weekend and did the mounding for it, but then the kids came and planted it.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and then there's the shark one, right?
yeah, I was just going to go to that one.
Okay.
Now I've laid out a couple of shark labyrinths. This is the one that's found in the cathedral in France.
Well, yeah.
But this is not it. It's usually covered with chairs.
Yeah, when I was in Chartres a couple times, it's always been covered. And then you have to get permission and pay a lot of money to go at night and have the chairs removed.
Yes,
And it
yeah,
kind of wasn't the whole concept when Chart was built. Yeah.
yeah. When Nicholas and Feather went the first time, they didn't have the chairs moved. They just walked the labyrinth by climbing over chairs. And they did a mock-up on stage one night during the Dowsers conference. And so you have Feather climbing over chairs, trying to walk this labyrinth.
It's
And
so
this is
funny.
quite-
I mean, that would seem so sacrilegious to anyone watching, right? But I mean,
Right,
the whole
right.
concept of covering it up, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, I participate in building one of these. And I don't know that it was as big as this, but anyhow, on the square in Danville, Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
And after I'd finished it, then they opened it up to the rest of the conference after we finished making it. And it was really interesting because I stood off to the side and watched people walk it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like there was one quadrant that if you divide this labyrinth into 4 pieces, there was like one quadrant of this as people were walking it, where there wasn't anybody in it.
Ah.
And that was quite interesting. It was just the way the pattern laid out and the people entered. There was no, no regulations on when you entered it or how you entered it. But it just seemed that there was always a quadrant that was empty.
It's so, because this one is, to me, the 7th Circuit seems so much more holistic, how you're going and you know what I mean? You're integrating both sides of the brain. This one tends to go on one side, then the other side. I mean, it's such a different kind of flow.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not the one that I found when I walked it elevated, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I do have a picture of the Chart's Labyrinth. Let's see if I can. This is a picture of the Chart's Labyrinth.
Uh-huh.
Not quite as complicated as the one I just showed you.
Right.
But this was the one. Well, here, I guess this is the entrance as you see it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can imagine it with chairs all over it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how big it is. The interesting thing on the beach labyrinth where I didn't measure anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just laid out the grid and had everybody draw, they knew each level to draw.
Mm-hmm.
When we finished up, we walked it off and it was 60 feet.
Wow.
Every time.
Amazing, isn't it?
It was amazing that
I mean,
it
you
came
don't
out
need
with
all
that.
the calculators, all the measurement.
No.
All that. Mm-hmm.
No, this was free form. And yet they all came out the same size.
It's just so like integrated, like it's just like the body knows,
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the interesting part that people who walk a standard labyrinth that is laid out on the land permanently, they don't get the same experience because, like I said, that
Right.
the pathways and
Mm-hmm.
you can feel the energy on your body.
And
And
it was a whole thing about labyrinths in water too, right? Attracting water.
yes, I've heard several people talking about building a labyrinth too close to the back of their house and their basement flooded.
Wow.
And then dowsing the land for water before they built the labyrinth and after, and it brings water in.
This is
I
one
had a cup.
California should listen to.
Right. One friend in Mexico was going to try it on his property, but we talked at a dowsing conference, and then he never came back again, so I never did find out, what happened to the labyrinth that he built around his well to see if it would bring water in. But it's the fact that you can not have water before you build it and have water after you build it is that's a big plus as far as I'm concerned.
And under Shark, there's water. They know that. I mean, Abbey Mermet and all of them, that.
Oh, that's right.
All of these cathedrals and that were built over water, or else they attracted water. Maybe you don't know.
Right. I don't know if the one in San Francisco, if they dowsed before. Feather was involved in that layout.
Yeah.
And
what
Grace
was her
Cathedral.
Name? Lauren Artris.
Artris, yes. Yeah, and she wrote a book on that.
I did a workshop with her once, but when it was all really new and happening, and then I drove up there with my friend and we walked it. Oh, it was in the afternoon, and they have those beautiful windows, so the light was all like,
oh right,
all the stained glass. So the whole labyrinth was colored. And then the priests, they were all singing the Vespers. It was so magical.
Oh, I bet.
If somebody could get a documentary of doing that, it's just like, be amazing.
Well, the Chartres Labyrinth, the window, there's a rose window on the wall.
Right.
And the Chartres Labyrinth is on the floor. And when the sun comes in there, if that wall, the rose window would overlay that labyrinth.
Whoa, I never heard that.
Yeah. So there's an alignment between the rose window and the labyrinth on the floor.
But you'd never see it because you could only walk it at night, and otherwise there's chairs.
Right. Unless you made the church.
2,000, yeah.
Yeah, people are spending, they want to take a tour of labyrinths or tour of France, and they, in order to walk that labyrinth, they have to make arrangements and pay up front.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But what's happened, there's labyrinths being built all over the country, all over the world. I helped in the Episcopal Church in Corona del Mar lay out their labyrinth. I staked it out for them. They were going to add all the round stuff and all that, but I did the dowsing for them to lay out the center and they were going to have to walk around a lot of trees.
Well, it's kind of amazing they're at hospitals now too. I mean, so many,
even prisons.
Oh,
even prisons.
Ah,
they're even putting them in prisons. Yeah. And mental facilities, shall we say.
But it's a way to keep everybody like naturally connected and centered,
Yeah. I mean, the ability to balance, I think Joseph was my biggest awareness of having one at the hospital would help in the healing. But that's hospitals are not the same as they used to be. Well, and I haven't heard, I posted one picture of the labyrinth on Facebook. Here's the one that, well, I'm on the wrong page here. Well, all these things I have to go through.
Building a labyrinth's easier.
Yeah, I posted this on Facebook.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I also work with color. So this one shows you how walking the labyrinth, there's a color format. So you start out on yellow. And you think of that and you relate that to the chakras. You start at the solar plexus, yellow, and then you go down to the spleen and base chakra,
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you come back up to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then you walk, as you follow this pattern, you follow green, the heart chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the crown chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the third eye, and then to the throat chakra before you go into the center.
Wow.
So if you're doing a meditation, or you're working on a conflict or a problem, or you want the answer, you can walk those colors, or you walk it with that in mind as you wander the pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So you ponder the issue as you go in and listen for the answers as you come out. But if you're doing your chakras in that, it's you come back out at your power center.
Mm-hmm. And you come out balanced.
And you come out balanced,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The place that Joseph had, he realized he could lift his legs up, was on the outer rim, on the red.
Mm.
That was when I'll say he started dancing.
So like while he was doing the yellow and orange, he was still dragging. And then by the time when he got to the red,
he was picking his legs up. It was so amazing to watch him. And the expression on his face and on his wife's face.
Right.
As he went through this pattern. But yeah, it was interesting. And the other thing that happens when people are in the labyrinth, they'll feel like they've hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Where you feel like you just can't take one more step.
Mm-hmm.
And they ponder it, and if people might pass them, or people will support them as they do their processing, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they start walking again. I've seen that many, many times.
Yeah, it is. You see people stop, and then they just like are kind of like deep thought, like,
yes.
So when you're looking at this in relationship to the chakras and things, it could be like where they're stuck and it's like, yeah.
Right.
And that part of the brain.
Right. And I found that with the when we did the free form, to look at each individual had a pathway to draw. Mm-hmm. And you could almost read where they were. If they were really tight, that was a part of their life where they were really tight.
Oh,
And when I've seen them particularly on the two outer rims. People draw them, and their pathways are really, really wide. Mm-hmm. And it's just like an explosion for them as they, because it's in the process of building the labyrinth is also a balancing. Mm-hmm. And so how they go out, or some people go really in, and I didn't talk about it to the people in the class. I didn't do psychoanalyzing them or anything like that, but it was just interesting to watch. Right. And know the people as they drew their pathways out. And then I always had somebody in the making the labyrinths at the beach. Mm-hmm. In the sand. There was always a Virgo. And that Virgo would take the rake, and all the pathways were smooth. They patted all the mounds. Mm-hmm. I'll show you that so you can get a sense of what some people are doing. This is Jeff and Annie, and I don't know who's in the background. Anyhow, and they went around and they smoothed out all the mounds because they were all raked from the sand. Mm-hmm. And then they would smooth out all the sand, the sides of the labyrinth. So they were so beautiful. Wow. Bob Green also did that. He was my Virgo.
So these lasted like a day, right?
Pardon?
The ones at the beach lasted like a day, or did they
No,
last
only till the
longer?
tide. They went out with the tide,
Right, yeah.
as
What's
we had
that
to
name?
build them in wet sand.
Uh-huh.
And so you can see the markers behind Jeff there, the
We
one
can't see
behind
it.
him.
We can't see anything.
Can't you see the post?
No. It's,
Oh, you're not
no,
seeing it. Oh, I'm talking about it and you're not seeing it.
that's
There
right.
you go. Hello.
Okay.
So the post behind Jeff there in the front
Uh-huh,
is the center,
okay.
and the post that's out of the labyrinth was the opening.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
so
really?
that's how we built from that.
This reminds me, you know, I love that guy. I think his name is Goldworthy, where he builds things and then they just in nature and then they just disappear.
Yes,
This is just identical to like what he was doing, you know.
right, exactly.
I never saw
Yeah.
him do a labyrinth, but it's like it just shows how ephemeral it all is.
Right. And one of the things about the seagulls is you could see a flock of seagulls. This labyrinth is in Capistrano Beach, or was.
Mhm.
And the seagulls would fly, and when they got to the labyrinth, they'd part. They'd fly around it. They didn't fly over it.
Whoa, so it has to have like a force coming up
Right.
into
Right.
another dimension.
Yep. It's multi-dimensional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that was interesting to observe the birds. And
that just kind of proves that it is multidimensional, like
right. And
yeah.
one eclipse, I went down to the beach, and a young girl and I built the labyrinth at the beach that day.
Mhm.
When everybody was watching the eclipse. And a man and his young son were walking the beach, and he must have been about 4, the little boy, and he said, can I walk it?
Mhm.
And so I said, sure, you can walk. Oh, he was so excited. He ran through the labyrinth,
Uh-huh.
got to the center, and sat his little bottom down. Then he ran back out. He went over and grabbed his dad and forced his dad to walk it with him.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so people walking by on the beach will ask if they can walk it as
Mhm.
well. Of course, I don't turn
Mhm.
anybody away.
Mhm.
Some are drawn to it, some aren't.
Right.
But it was fun to just create.
So it's like so many of these private schools that have put them in for ADD kids and ADHD
Mhm.
kids and autism have had like really phenomenal results. But the thing I have now, like just listening to you, directionality is so important.
Right, right.
I mean, that they're not just doing some random labyrinth.
No, no. But that 4-year-old was so excited.
Right,
So
but he just
excited.
recognized the whole thing.
He
yeah.
did. I
Mhm.
mean, he was just in there in a snap.
Right.
And was, I mean, it was so funny to watch him get to the center and just sit down.
Oh.
But then to get his dad in, that was,
Mm-hmm.
let's see here. I want to see if I've got any more that I missed.
Well, we're almost at the end. So this was like great because we actually got to see work that you had done and how important it is to do directional and, you know.
Yeah. Oh, here's one. Somebody's, I mean, that's a classical, I mean, that's a Chartres
Oh,
labyrinth.
wow. Look at that one.
Yeah.
This was a Mason.
Yes, definitely. So you find them in all kinds of materials.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but everybody loved to draw one, and I'll go back to that page.
Right.
That
Well, that'd be a perfect way to end the whole thing, because then everybody can take a screenshot and just have one that they just trade.
yeah, and so right. Yep, so you can build it on a rock, you can do it on, you know, a tablet,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got it.
Put it on your phone.
Well, the one I have out on my patio, I forgot to bring in, is I did in sort of a metallic puff paint
Uh-huh.
when I drew it out on the rock. And that's what we did in class. A lot of, was yours on puff paint, Carol?
Yeah, it was. It's just kind of that's dissipated because it's like, you know, it's at least 15, 18 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that picture of Jeff was 2006, so that's a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But taking this pattern and being able to draw your own, and then however big you make it. I mean, you know, some people do it on their driveway, and some people do it on a rock, but you've got it permanently for yourself to finger walk or physically walk.
Yeah, you could really teach this to the kids in schools, and on the playground, they could draw them in chalk.
Right, right.
It would be a great exercise for them.
Yeah, kids love labyrinths. Like the little one at the beach that I had. Yeah. But this being able to draw it to me, it was always a picture like this. This is what I saw. Just the one down in the bottom right-hand corner. That would have been all I had seen until 1988 when I saw it on the ground, and I was just entranced by it. But you can draw that pattern on your hand. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show was the difference here in the entryway. Now this labyrinth is just like the one that was colored, only the entrance, whoops, you don't have it.
There it is.
The entrance is on the right on this one. And the one that's colored, the entrance is on the left.
And is there any,
and the way you make those differences is, I'll go back now to the.
But I mean, do you see any difference in bringing harmony or anything?
It has a different energy, and how to describe it, I don't know.
Okay.
Some people have it pegged as, you know, this is spiritual and this is da da da, whatever.
Right.
But here's the thing. This one, the entrance is on the left, if you can see down at the bottom. Now, if you go up to the top and the second pattern in, you see that they have done the loop over to the right.
Oh, so you would just do it the opposite way.
If you do it in the opposite direction, the doorway will be on the right instead of the left.
I see. So that loop right there determines your doorway. That's
interesting.
Yeah.
Yep, that sets the pattern. Well, if you're building a permanent one, you might want to douse or ask, which side should my entrance be? For long-term benefit or whatever. You know, different situations require different places.
Right.
I think all the ones that I have participated in as a permanent have all been left-handed entrances. And I didn't analyze it to find out why.
Right. But it's interesting that it works out that way, because it just seems
It
the most
is.
natural. Yeah.
Right.
The other seems you're going against, but I don't know, it seems more natural.
And this is a good example of the entrance. going to the left.
Is there a picture?
Oh, yeah, there is. I gotta punch the right button, Carol.
Okay,
Oh,
we're
my-
just wondering. There we go. Okay, that one.
That one.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one.
Yeah.
That they found
It-
all of that many stones and everything is so uniform.
And majority of those rocks came from the property
Mm-hmm.
in Valley Center off the 15 freeway
Mm-hmm.
near Escondido. I haven't been back there in a while, but I heard from Elizabeth. Yeah, her husband and her brother did the major carrying of the rocks and laying that out.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, when it was first built, there were lots of spaces between the rocks,
Right.
and people have brought rocks and,
Mm-hmm.
prayer cloths and whatever things, crystals and whatever, and filled in all that
This
labyrinth.
was a very powerful labyrinth. The water.
Yeah, it's a beautiful one.
But just that whole Escene Park had such fabulous energies,
Yeah, and that's right next to there's a medicine wheel off to the upper right-hand corner. Somebody had built a medicine wheel. And
didn't we do, did they have a sweat lodge?
there is a sweat lodge there
Yeah,
as
because I
well.
remember doing a sweat lodge there too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I helped in the building of that. We went out along the riverbed and cut down all the willows and brought it back and built it. It was quite an experience. Yeah.
Right. No, I remember.
Yeah.
Okay, Sue. Well, this was so informative, and everybody will have it, and they can make their own personal labyrinth, and it's a good one to do with kids.
Oh,
So,
yes. And if you want to walk one, Labyrinth, I think it's the Labyrinth Society has a directory of people who have registered their labyrinths.
oh, okay. I know there's
And-
several in LA. Yeah, you can just look them up.
Some of them are open. There's a church in Tustin that has one.
Mhm.
Some are open, some are private. They don't want you walking their property.
There's a big
Oh.
one in South Central that's open in a park. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
several. So you just got to look those up. Well,
Yeah, and
thank
they're all
you.
over the world.
Yeah, this was like a really good one, and everybody got like things they can do also, and like use.
Well, participate in the labyrinth. It's
Right.
and then at this time, I was thinking last night as I was going over my notes and stuff, it's really vital
Right,
at this time because things are out of whack.
right, and we could bring some simply bring some balance in. Actually,
Yeah.
we could put a labyrinth on our TV and trace it over everybody.
I've done that.
And then put one over the Capitol and trace it. You could be doing, yeah.
Yeah,
We've done things like that. So
we've been known to do those things, haven't we, Carol? Over
anyhow,
the years.
thank you so much. This was
Oh, you're
really a
welcome,
great
dear.
interview. Okay, bye everybody, and we'll see you at the next one.
Bye.